Hey, what's up, jobbers? It is your boy BQ. Welcome back to the Negative BQ YouTube channel. This is the lounge, and we're going to talk the TNA Impact debut on AMC. Now, this isn't going to be a normal review show for me because we got Genesis coming tonight. So this is not going to be. I don't have sound bites loaded. I'm not going like deep into it segment by segment. I don't even have my camera on for you guys today. This is just basically going to be a reaction to the debut on AMC. Obviously, I always watch TNA several days after the majority of you guys do. I was going to try to watch it live. I actually had an invitation from Hami Media Group to do a live watch along with them. But the show, so when the show starts here on the West Coast, I am just getting home from work, and it turned. I had to go pick up my daughter from the airport too, and I'm also the one who cooks here, so it's not realistic for me to watch it. And I was gonna try to make that exception for that night and promote it to you guys and all that. I couldn't do it. It's too difficult for me in my schedule. But I did watch the show this morning. I woke up at 4 a.m. this morning on a Saturday to watch this show. I usually watch the shows Monday morning, and then I review them on Tuesday. On a good week, I'll watch it on Sunday, review it on Monday. But I wanted to get into it quicker because I've been getting obviously a lot of DMs about my reactions, and I'm seeing a lot of online chatter. I've spent a lot more time on Twitter in the last several days just to take the temperature of the show. And I've obviously established myself as quite the critic over the years, and there's been a lot of details throughout the shows that I have begged them to work on. I have begged them to fix. I've been talking about production issues for like at least 8 years, you know? And so over the years, yeah, I've been quite the critic of the show. Always try to point out what I like though. I wanted to go into this with a very, very open mind because I saw all the online reaction, and it was mainly negative. And whether you thought the show was good or not, the online perception was that it was a bad show, which is going to hurt TNA. And it's one thing when it's the IWC, but when it's the voices who have a large reach, Brian Alvarez, JD from NY, these type of people, and they are just openly going out and saying, "Yo, this show sucked." That's very damaging to TNA. But I wanted to go into it with a very, very open mind. I wanted to give my own assessment of it. I am not someone who follows trends. You guys know that from my sports teams. You know what I mean? I don't follow trends. I don't just say, "Okay, this is the reaction everyone's having. I'm going to agree with it." I come up with my own assessment of things. And I'm going to be totally honest, as I always am. I didn't think the show was that bad. It definitely was not as bad as people are painting it to be. Now, number one, I go into every show with no expectations. I don't want to say I lower my expectations. I go into them with no expectations. The only expectations I do have is that there's going to be production issues. Um, there's going to be, I'm always going to hope that the lighting is a little bit better. I always know that it's not going to be. You know, I've started to bake that into my brain that I just know what TNA is, you know, and I've been trying to not focus on those things so much lately because I did it for so long. And I just always try to go into every episode open mind. I don't care if people like it or if they don't like it. I watch it for me and base my thoughts just on my take of the show. I think there was a lot of people online that wanted to go into it hating it. I think that is one of the issues. I think one of the other issues is that a lot of the hardcores went into it with really, really high expectations. And You just can't do that because you're gonna get let down. I will say that every TNA episode that's been live in 2025, I thought failed to deliver. I thought their worst episodes of the year were all the live ones. There's just something about live TV that they're still trying to grasp. They have had some like really lackluster surprises. And I just think I just think the fans have to stop expecting these game changers to show up on the show. It's just not going to happen. Those people aren't out there. So I've seen the online reaction to some of the debuts we got, and it's always like, well, they don't move the needle. Who moves the needle? You know what I mean? Like there's no one out there you can get that's drawing money. When they bring in anybody, whether it's a guy or a girl, all you can hope is that TNA is going to get the absolute best out of them. I mean that's kind of how I try to look at it. No one is bringing extra fans. No one is moving the needle. But if they bring someone in and use them better than the last place did, then I think that's a win. Like look at Bear Bronson, who I don't even know if we're going to see him again. I have no clue what his future is with the company. But obviously, he's not bringing a new fan base with him. But you look at a guy like that and say, okay, well, he was over here doing nothing. Like maybe TNA can do something with him. To me, that's exciting. To me, that's adding something fresh to the show, especially when they bring in these um, names that we're familiar with and they reinvent themselves. My issue is always like, okay, you bring this former WWE talent in and they come in and they're just doing the same old thing or they're going through the motions. I'm like, that's an issue. But if you're coming over Asked by Elegance is a great example. I don't see people call her Dana Brooke anymore online. Like she came and completely reinvented herself. I'm all for that kind of thing. So, you know, when they're bringing these wrestlers on and their debuts and everyone's disappointed, like you got to give it a chance first to see what TNA is going to do with them and see what the wrestler might do for themselves. You know what I mean? Like Ash came in saying, "Hey, I want to do something new and fresh," and we had to give that a chance. It started off horrible, and then it grew into something pretty decent. But I just think too many people went in with expectations, and I think too many people went in wanting to hate it. The dude from No DQ, that's another guy. He went in wanting to hate it. I know that because I'm Facebook friends with him, and all he did was clown the show the entire night and the entire next 2 days. He just continued to post how bad the show was. I didn't think the show was that bad, folks. Like, I agree with a lot of I agree with the online assessment about the small details because I point out small details. Okay. You're showing the quote unquote stars at ringside. You're trying to put them like in a VIP area. I know what they were trying to do, but instead it just showed them look like they're sitting in an empty part of the arena. There was issues with the microphones. The lighting could have been a little bit better in the ring. You can light up the fans, the audience a little bit better than you do. The ring is lit up much better than it used to be. Um, Gia Miller backstage, her first interview sounded like shit. It wasn't cutting in and out or anything, but it was very echoey and just, you know, yeah, there was production issues. Eric Bischoff, another one, um, big name, going out there and saying how bad it was, talking about the production issues. If Jim Cornette watches it, that's bad for TNA. I'm part of his Facebook group. Brian Last runs it, and Brian Last started a discussion thread, so he probably watched it, and he hates everything TNA does. So there was a lot of eyes who are people who are already really negative and really critical. And Moose went on social media talking about, if you're not in our industry, you shouldn't be able to critique it, which is incorrect. But he was going at it with JD from NY, and I listen to a lot of JD. I kind of stopped because I just can't imagine getting that mad about wrestling about anything really. But yeah, even though I have listened to him a lot in the past, I would not say he's provides constructive criticism. He will point out everything that sucks, and everything that he hates, but I don't think he sits there and says, "Well, this is what I would do different." Where I that is typically my approach, even though I still get the negative connotation, which, I've obviously thrown in my name on the channel at this point. I've always tried to be like, "Well, I would do this different. I would like to see this." And some people see that as nitpicking, but to me, it's just constructive criticism, and as I've explained to many of you before, it's just what I learned in the military. Like, don't point out something if you don't have a solution. Also, so I always try to have that mindset when I'm reviewing the show. But again, with all this chatter and everything I'm seeing, and even people whose opinions mean a lot to me, as far as TNA fans, people part of the my Impact Lounge engagement group on Facebook, even with a lot of those opinions that I saw also disliking the show, I went into it with a very open mind, and I'm watching it, and even though I am seeing the little snafus, I'm seeing the production issues, I'm seeing the Perez Hilton shit, like, I'm still watching and I'm like, "I don't think this is that bad of a show." I didn't To me, it wasn't like, "Oh, they laid this huge egg." Now, did they come out, um, you know, just with did they come out firing on all cylinders? I guess that is what I'm trying to say. It's a terminology I'm looking for. Did it come out firing on all cylinders? Fuck no. Okay. Part of the issue was, or I guess part of the online perception is that people are saying, yo, they had months to prepare for this episode. Okay. It's Myron Reed was basically pulled from the X Division match, where it's like, dude, you guys know their contracts are running up, and the company has a history of this. Okay. Since I've started reviewing this damn show in like 2015 or whenever I did, they have a history of people at the end of their contracts wrestling for titles or holding titles, and then you mix that with taped television, and we get like these shit shows every year. There's some every couple months. It seems like this happens, but it happens several times every year. Exactly what I'm saying. Guys wrestling for titles at the end of their contracts, or not on contracts, or holding titles at the end of their contract, or not on a contract. And you know, I understand wanting to have this like hot X Division match for the show, but you know, Myron Reed has no real connections to you contractually. You already know you're not going to re-sign the Rascals. Okay, they said they didn't even make him an offer, and then there was another report, Zachary Wednesday, that made an offer that was no different than the one he was already on. But if you already know you don't have that much interest in retaining these guys or paying them extra, like, go a different direction. So I do understand that. I I don't feel that they were as prepared for this episode as they needed to be. I know that there was visa issues. We all understand at this point. So now there's no Leon Slater, there's no Danny Luna, and these are big parts of the show because they're two of the talents that TNA fans are very invested into right now. Leon Slater is a guy you have to have on your show if you're trying to pull in new viewers. And um, as I said, TNA fans are really invested in Danny Luna at the moment. So there's some things out of your control, yes, but the company has not really established themselves as one that rolls with the punches very well. You can go back to when Ash by Elegance had to drop the title, and they put it on Leilani Jordan, whatever. I can't remember. Kalani Jordan. I'm sorry. I say Leilani Kai. Kalani Jordan. We tried to give them some grace because they had to make a quick decision, but it was like a decision also that just did not get over with the people that they were very upset about, because we just sat through the storyline of getting the title off of NXT, and then they voluntarily put an NXT person into the title match just to win it back. So it's not a company to me that's established themselves as rolling with the punches very well, or making smart, quick, last minute decisions. I can say that about them. Do I feel like they had lots of time to build up to this, to prepare for this show? Yeah, absolutely. And there was only 3 matches on the show, but when I was watching it, I wasn't like, "Oh, there's only 3 matches here." It didn't feel that way to me. It didn't, and I know there was a lot of talking segments, but I don't think I would have noticed there was only 3 matches unless if I didn't know in advance, if it wasn't pointed out several times to me already. I don't think I would have even have noticed, and I thought the matches they had were fine. But honestly, folks, I didn't think it was anywhere near as bad as people said. I do think that there was a lot of people who hate watched it, and unfortunately, as I said, a lot of influential people went into this show. Um, I don't think with an open enough mind. They went into it, didn't like it, and they were spreading that opinion online, and that is very bad for their branding and their online presence. It's very, very bad. The return of LOL TNA happened on Twitter. You know, I mean, it's always out there a little bit, but it is out in full force. Now, I'm someone too that I only really watch TNA. Okay, I watch NWA when I have the opportunity. I've started getting into JCW a little bit, but I punched out on WWE and AEW a long time ago. I think those are genuinely bad shows, and it's not. Again, because I make my own decisions. I watch what I like, I don't watch what I don't like. I am not one of those people, if I really dislike something, I'm not just gonna keep watching it, you know? Shit, my favorite show on TV at one point was Legends of Tomorrow, man. I was so fucking into that show, and then once they stopped going to the past and started going to the future, it was like the worst show I've ever seen in my life, and I just stopped watching it. You know, you're not going to force me to watch anything. So when I say I don't like AEW or WWE, it's not because I'm this like big TNA guy and tribalism. Like those are genuinely bad shows to me. So as bad as those shows are, and people continue to watch, like it's insane that you would watch this episode here and be like, "Oh, they dropped the ball. This is the worst." You know, someone said it was one of the worst episodes they ever seen. I think it was like Brian Alvarez. You know, dude, there's no way you can sit through Raw every week and sit through Dynamite every week and watch what they put out and then watch this and be like, "This is the worst thing I've ever seen." Okay, yes, the production issues, some of the other, Perez Hilton and shit like that. I get it. Okay, the Mr. Elegant stuff was terrible. You know, I get it, but I still think there's way worse out there. If this show was that bad, I wouldn't even be sitting here watching it and talking about it. But I'm gonna run through it real quick. Again, like I said, no sound bites, no nothing like that. I just want to give my thoughts from top to bottom real quick because it's time to move on to Genesis, which I think Genesis card is not good. I'm not excited for it at all. I'm pretty much going into it like I'm watching a normal episode of Impact. In the back of my mind, I know that 80% of the time the pay-per-views deliver for TNA. I don't think they get enough credit for that. The credit always seems to go to AEW. Oh, AEW's pay-per-views. Like, I mean, if you like 6.5 hours of kickouts, I guess so. But I don't think TNA gets the credit they rightfully deserve for their pay-per-views. I didn't think Bound for Glory is particularly good this past year. I don't think that show's ever good, to be honest. But usually, the first show of every year, the first pay-per-view is really top notch. So I'm trying to go into it saying, "Yo, Hard to Kill and Genesis and these things that have always kicked off the year have always been really good. So let me assume it's going to be good." The card does nothing for me. I want to see Rich Swann and AJ Francis, but other than that, I'm just kind of like, there's nothing here for me, you know. But I'm gonna go into it with an open mind, like I did this episode. But so it kicks off AJ Styles. AJ Styles was promoted for this thing. And unfortunately, there's these pictures going on around online showing that I don't want to be that dude, like the hard cam side, but every company does it at this point. So it's so unfair to take pictures of that and say that's the attendance. Clearly, there was a lot of people there. But it kicked off with AJ Styles, and I had to laugh because he's like, "We got some wrestling to do." excuse me, and knowing that there was so little wrestling on the show. No one knew that at the time, obviously, but I'm watching it a couple days later. It was kind of funny, but it was a good way, it was a good way to kick off the show to get the people into it. The opening video package was very good. Jonathan Coachman's the only like influential guy I've seen online that kind of put the show over, and I'm a big fan of his. And it was a good idea to kick it off with the Hardys, obviously over. Um, they are teaming up with Elijah against the Order 4. Part of the problem for the show is that I felt like it was geared towards the WWE AEW audience, saying, "Hey, we're going to give you all these people you already know." Because outside of Hotch and Skylar and the Elegance brand, it was all familiar faces. Maybe I'm missing a name here and there, but it was all pretty much familiar faces to those audiences. And TNA does have a habit of when they're going to have extra eyeballs on a product. Um, I can go all the way back to the Broken Hardys when they did the final deletion. We can talk about the episode where Kenny Omega was on, and you got all these extra eyeballs. Um, some of the stuff that they were doing with NXT, they have a habit of when there's more eyeballs of getting away from what they do and trying to appeal to that audience too much instead of saying, okay, this is TNA, this is what we're about, this is what we do, this is what we're known for. They try to appease that audience a little too much. I always say you got to have a 70-30 balance. 30 of trying to appease them and 70 of showing what you can do. You can't look at this episode and say that. That's it just, all the way from Sonya Deville to Corey Jade, I'm using their WWE names, to Santino, to everything. It was just stuff that it just seemed like it was geared towards the WWE audience. And there was very little on this show that says, hey, this is what TNA is about. Aside from like the Elegance brand, who I thought the match was fine, but the actual, like, all the other shit, I'll get into it in a second. Like, that was not a good representation of them, in my opinion. Um, but the Hardys and Elijah match versus the Order 4, I thought that was pretty good. I thought the action was pretty solid for that. Obvious winner. Jeff Hardy completely pancaked him on that that freaking swanton. By the way, I thought so. Obviously, if you listen to me for a while, you know that I watch the show on mute because I can't stomach Hannafin and Ray Wall anymore. But this episode, I was like, let me listen to it with the volume on. Let me put myself through that because I really need to take in the episode. I can't just watch it like I do everything else. I feel like I had to go into it very different. I thought Hannafin did a good job throughout the show of, especially with this opening match, kind of selling the feud, explaining the feud. Like I've watched enough AEW in my time where the commentators don't do that. They don't tell much of a story because they're so focused on the wrestling. And there was times where I was watching AEW, um, whatever they're a Rampage, uh, AEW Dark. Like this is kind of like during the pandemic when there wasn't a whole lot to do. I was watching everything, and I was still so confused from week to week because they just didn't tie stuff together. Hannafin did a pretty good job this episode of explaining the Order 4 feud with Elijah, and then kind of throughout the show interweaving the Hardys and the Righteous. So I thought he did a good job of just selling the feud. He was introducing Order 4, like he was explaining who Agent Zero is and kind of explaining Hotch and Skyler. You know, I had to laugh at one part. He goes, "The stars are out," and it shows like the influencers, and then it like pans to Agent Zero standing there, and he just had to play it off like, "Oh wait," and Agent Zero looking on, but it was just so funny. I don't even know if you guys caught that. Oh, the stars are out tonight. Shows them for about 5 seconds and then shows Agent Zero standing there. But I'll give Hannafin some respect for that. And of course they did Gia Miller's second segment of the show. It's a storyline, a story or a storyboard, I should say. They just fill in the blanks every episode and do everything in the same exact order. Um, The backstage segments do look a lot better than they used to, but they were kind of back to shadows being all over Gia Miller. So she's talking to Frankie Kazarian. AJ Styles comes out, and their shadows completely covered Gia Miller to where she was black, and you cannot see the expression on her face. Again, that is shit lighting. You cannot have lighting coming from the light source cannot be right in front of you. You have to have two light sources, both at 45-degree angles, pointing at where you're trying to light it up, and that's what eliminates the fucking shadow because they cancel each other out. So the lighting was like still an issue with this backstage stuff, but it still looks much better than it used to because they used to be talking in the dark and it was freaking embarrassing to watch. But the segment did not sound good. So we're kind of off to a bad start. Now they in the opening match, I didn't talk about it. They did cut to commercials like two. I think there was like two commercials in the opening match. I didn't feel like throughout the episode, the rest of the episode, it was filled with commercials. Now it's different because I'm watching on TNA Plus, but I didn't feel aside from that opening match, I didn't think it was like overkill. At least it just didn't feel that way to me. And then after this, they're showing the content creators, and this was one of the things online. People are pointing out no one knows who these people are, and I'm okay. Like I get it, dude. I'm a Clipper fan. You know what I'm saying? Like when I say, hey, the stars are out at the Clipper game, it's not the same stars that are at the Laker game. Like I get that. Okay. I also like the Brooklyn Nets a lot. The stars that sit at courtside for the Brooklyn Nets are not the ones that sit courtside for the Knicks. I get it. Okay. It's fine, but you want to sell this kind of thing. But of course, the empty seats behind him make him look silly. And then Eric Young is sitting there. And if you're watching TNA for the first time, you have no clue about the cleanse. He's I was like, the cleanse has to happen on the AMC debut. It didn't. It's delayed until 2032. Eric Young is just sitting there. No one knows why. The story wasn't told. It just looked kind of indie. And frankly, the TNA fan base doesn't care about the cleanse to begin with. So as much as I appreciate them dragging it out, now I'm kind of like, okay, let's get somewhere with this. Let's do this. Shout out to freaking Candice Michelle that was ringside there. I thought that was pretty cool. I saw that picture online, and obviously she's older than she was when she was on WWE TV. But I'm thinking to myself, like, is that Candice Michelle? But I'm thinking, what would she be doing there? And it was her. So, um, yeah, I met her in real life one time. Very very beautiful. I had to laugh after this because they're showing Ariana Grace nutshot Santino. Ray Wall is going to this whole thing of Santino's never been or hasn't been the same since. His music hits and he comes out shit eating grin, getting himself over, pig and shit. Couldn't have been happier to be there. The transition out of that was fucking classic TNA. But Santino comes out, and again, Hannafin, again, he course corrected it. He stepped in and well, it's good to see him smiling and this and this. He course corrected where Ray Wall sounded like a freaking goof a second ago. So this was some of Hannafin's better work, even though I think he is very, very not good. So Santino's talking a little bit and he introduces because he's been down in the dumps and all that, they've got him some help. And it is man, I accidentally erased her name, but Daria whatever. But it is the former Sonya Deville from WWE. And when I did see her in WWE for the little I was kind of watching over the years, I've always liked her. I liked her as a wrestler, and then I liked her as a because I like wrestlers who when they hit you, it looks like they're hitting you. Watch one of her matches. Watch uh, one of Madison Rain's matches. You know what I'm saying? And you see love taps from Madison Rain, and you see Sonya Deville trying to take her head off. Like I like that when I'm watching wrestling in general, whether it's the guys or the girls. I'm not into the fake forearms. So I've always kind of like been into her. I like her. She comes out, and I thought her. promo was very, very good. She put over the crowd and Santino and everything, and then she lets us know that there's going to be a basically an authority figure battle. And I'm seeing online people are like, "Are we really doing this again? We just did it with Robert Stone." Yes, we did, but based on like conversations I've had, I do think TNA is actually very aware that the TNA fan base is kind of over Santino. They just continue to use him because he's obviously over with this WWE audience. I thought his comedy on this episode was really bad, and I think when you're trying to promote a pay per view like Genesis, you don't mispronounce the name, and I don't think stupidly mispronounce the names of the people in the main events and the important matches. Because it just kind of makes it seem like a joke. She's obviously not taking this like a joke. She's being the anti Santino, so I'm all for that. Um, I feel like this might be the start of transitioning Santino out of there. Because another thing I told you guys is as long as Ariana Grace is on the show, Santino is going to be on the show. So once Styx eventually drops the title and they phase them out, then it's maybe they're trying to phase Santino out too. Now I fully expect Santino to win that belt, and if he's a wrestler, he can't really be an authority figure. So it all kind of makes sense to me. Um, she might put him in positions where she's trying to make him lose the belt. Who knows? Like the story could be interesting. I'm open to it, but I think she's good at what she does. So I think we should just see what they're going to do. She announces the latest knockout. It is Elena Black. Now she was on TNA before as Cora Jade. She's obviously hot as shit. She can't wrestle. She can't talk. That is the problem. Um, the wrestling, I think there's a lot of good enough knockouts. I mean, don't put her in a match with Indy Hartwell. You know what I'm saying? But there's a lot of good enough knockouts where they can probably carry her to an extent. I'm a little worried about the promos because NXT's promos suck dog balls. And if she brings that style to TNA, I'm going to be like, shut the fuck up. You know what I'm saying? So that is an issue I have. I don't understand NXT's promo classes where they make everyone sound fake and nothing's genuine. If she can tap into her more genuine side a little bit, hopefully it'll work. But I'm open to seeing what she can do. Obviously, I'm fine with fucking hot bitches on my screen, okay? But let's give it a chance under the TNA umbrella. I mean, she came out looking exactly like Cora Jade. She's the same poses, like I don't see there being a whole different character by any means. I think she's too young in the industry right now to come out and say, "Hey, I'm going to do things different than I have." I think she's going to come out and be who she is and what we know. As long as they're not throwing her in the title picture right away, um, I'm okay with it. So, I mean, that is just my assessment on her. Like, she looks great. She's not a good wrestler. She's not a good talker. So, if they can kind of work around her weaknesses a little bit and try to um, put her in a position where she can get a little better in the ring, get a little bit better, talking. Like, fortunately, you got guys around you, Mike Santana. Who knows if JDC stays on as some kind of producer? You've got guys around her who can talk. You don't have that at NXT. Like, there's no one on that show that can talk. Even the ones who they say are good talkers, like Ethan Page, are not. They're same phony promos. There's guys and girls on the TNA roster, Zaya Brookside being another, who they just sound very genuine when they're speaking, and I think that is going to be good for her. But I'm open to see what she can do. We don't really need more knockouts, but they did get rid of Killer Kelly. We're obviously losing the inspiration, which we'll talk about here in a sec. After this, now this was one of the segments that just really, really didn't do very well online, and it was the Elegance brand introducing Mr. Elegance. Now Perez Hilton is there. Perez Hilton has not. I mean, he's old at this point. Like, he hasn't had. They call him the original influencer, so I kind of get where they were going with it, but he hasn't had any relevance in a really long time. So it, it would have been better if he was just in the ring rather than them announce him, because when they announced him ahead of time, it just seemed like, wow, who's this D-list fucking celebrity at this point who you're promoting on the show? Like, just just deliver the show and then have Perez Hilton just have it be a surprise to us, I guess is what I'm saying. But this Elegance brand segment was not very good, and you know I love them. They announced Mr. Elegance, and it is I mean, he's got a great body, he's got a good look. Um, I think he should get a little bit of a tan, but I forgot what his name was. ADJ, AJ something, AJ Styles, AJ Lee, Dragon Lee. I don't remember exactly what his name was. AJ Francis, Big Boom AJ. It's something with an A, but he fits what they're doing. Let's face it. His promo was not very fun. I thought it was pretty cringe. It was pretty embarrassing, but he fits what they're doing. The story looking for Mr. Elegance was not good. Let's not pretend that it was. Last week they teased that it was going to be the fat cameraman, which I think the fat cameraman was the fake Elijah also, because the fake Elijah last week was fat. So I'm pretty sure this was him. The way this story should have played out, if you wanted to get some real heat, because they announced him, Mr. Elegance, they had him covered up, everything. Not a soul knew who he was. And surely they had to have known that. The guy's only been on TNA television once or twice as a jobber. I think he did cut a promo though, because I think he's someone's student on the show. He has some kind of connection to the show, but again, like he's got a pretty decent look. But what I would have done is I would have last week how they pretended it was going to be the fat cameraman. What they did is they put him on the screen today and say, "Oh, this was me." They tried to play it like a before and after picture. It just didn't come off the way I think they intended for it to. But what they really, in my opinion, what they should have done was announce the fat cameraman as Mr. Elegance and just have him take off his shirt and pose and do whatever in the ring there, and then have the actual real Mr. Elegance come and take him out and get some heat. And almost like this bullying, body shaming type of thing. I think that would have gotten over a lot better rather than the way that they did it. That's just me. I think when you creatively do segments, they have to like mirror real life a little bit. And body shaming is a thing, bullying is a thing. So why not just do that in the ring? So that's kind of what I would have done. They ended up taking on the Inspiration. A lot of people said the match was bad. I thought it was fine. I think Heather and Em are excellent. I don't think they can have bad matches. The Inspiration's fine. So Elegance brand obviously gets the title back. Also, Mr. Elegance didn't need to be in his wrestling gear. I thought that was a little weird too. He was like not covered up at all. But then I don't know. Like he should have had some kind of shirt that like Frankie Kazarian would wear, or like that Joe Hendry shirt, something like that. But it was just weird. He was in his wrestling gear. Like, is he the new Jake something? He's just going to come out dressed to compete at all times. Who knows? But yeah, this was where the show did nosedive a little bit. But I just didn't think. Again, I've seen way worse on the other shows, way worse. So I don't think this is something to say I'm not watching TNA again over. Um, Hannafin twice this match had said the Inspiration was the best women's tag team over the past decade. No other team exhibits synchronicity and something else like them. He did it twice in the match, almost like he forgot to say it. But because he has all these pre-rehearsed things that he does, he just delivered the information twice to us throughout the course of the match. Um, I did get things a little bit out of order here because I think now was the Santino. Oh no, it was Santino again. That's why. Santino with Lady Lee, of course, because she's the Knockouts champion. We got to mispronounce that prior to your big pay per view. But um, again, someone who's clearly not going through it that much because he's in there just making matches and being on TV like he normally is. But he is laying Lee know, and the fans know that we have a visa issue with Danny Luna, so there is an open challenge. All the knockouts we have, they could not provide her with a challenger, So they went the NXT route again. So they're once again and also NXT girls are going to wrestle the Elegance brand here soon. So there's like a number one contenders match. So once again, they are chancing by their own decision to put their titles on NXT talent. Remember Hannafin selling, "Oh, this is a nightmare. NXT has our championships. Why do you keep giving them title matches, especially ones that were unearned?" Um, I wanted. I mean, there has been just it wasn't just a month or two ago that yeah, it was like Final Resolution. There was like three title matches. Everyone is from NXT. All the challengers, like we're voluntarily putting these guys in position to win your belts, and they just like continue to do it. The Knockouts champion. Um, but TNA baby. And then oh yeah, so anyway, Sol Sol Ruka and Zarya come out. And of course they're Zaruka because no one has any original names in wrestling anymore. That's what you do. You just put a tag team together, you combine their names and magic, right? But they let us know that Zarya, who I know nothing about, is going to challenge Laying Lee for the title. I'm not very interested in that. And then the system came out, and Eddie Edwards is talking. They start giving him the what chant. JDC, who's a fucking professional, was able to shut that off very very quickly. Eddie Edwards obviously couldn't. And man, the visual here, JDC's taller. He's in better shape. He's better looking. Just the visual of him and Eddie Edwards was just awkward. Um, I don't think they've done a very good job in promoting this match at all. Like even though we got this JDC retirement thing going, it's like it's really like an afterthought. But when he was talking to the crowd here, because he's had very little mic time as part of the system, I was just thinking to myself, man, this was actually someone that if they would have reinvented him from the beginning, we might have had something here. The guy can talk. He's one of the better looking guys on the roster. Like maybe you could have done something with him, but instead they kind of went the dirty dango thing, and then he turned heel, and that gimmick was going very good for a while with Bravo and Oleg Prudius, and because Scott D'Amore was paying Oleg Prudius so much money for doing nothing, they had to get him out of that contract, and that whole thing died. Then they put him in a system, and it didn't really fit, but they made it fit over time. But as he's talking here, I was like, man, maybe they could have done something with him if they just kind of reinvented him from the beginning and let this dude talk. But very, very natural speaker. And it looked like him and Eddie wanted to fuck each other when they were in each other's face rather than wrestle each other. And then Carlos Silva, future star of the show. I've told you by March he's going to be a character on the show. He came out, addressed the audience. He was on the show more than anybody else. We saw his face more than Hannafin's, I think. And he gets producer credits now at the end of the show. So his name is on the screen when they go off the air. So the Carlos Silva era is definitely coming. And I think whatever happens, if Santino goes out of power and Daria, whatever her last name is, I do not remember, if she gets him out of power, I think Carlos Silva will be involved in that angle, and that's what's going to introduce him as an on-screen character on TV. But Silva comes out. He announces Dixie Carter, and they booed her. And man, I wish she was on the show regularly because I was like, man, I can use the soundbite for her from uh, 40-Year-Old Virgin, where he's like, she's a hot grandma. But anyway, she just addressed the crowd real quick. It's always good to see Dixie. She didn't deserve a negative reaction at all, in my opinion. But they kept it quick and simple. Bully Ray comes out for whatever reason, probably so he can take credit for the viewership bump on A1's AMC. But he came out, gave her a hug, and then they put him on commentary. And I gotta say, he was a breath of fresh air on commentary. He sounds like Paul Heyman. I kept thinking it was Paul Heyman on commentary, but he was a breath of fresh air on commentary because you got phony Tom doing everything as fake as possible. You got Ray Wall, who's just bad. And then you have Bully Ray, who's obviously not too familiar with the TNA product based on his commentary, but just sounded very natural and was giving um, a lot of insight that wrestler insight that we're missing from the commentary. He's talking about if you put a headlock on like this and you do this and this, like it was just insightful and it was different. And he really, because he was so natural, it just stood out like a sore thumb next to Hannafin. People barely bumping into each other and him trying to sell it with his and a kick out bullshit. Like it's they sounded awkward next to each other, but I remember from watching Explosion over time that Jim Miller, who actually sounds pretty natural on commentary, Hannafin benefits from her. He could benefit from a Bully Ray full time on commentary. Someone who just again just has the natural voice, natural way speaking, and is not acting. Hannafin could benefit from that. But in the main event, it was Frankie Kazarian defending the title against Santana. It was a little botchy in parts, but I thought the match was fine. I thought all the wrestling was fine on the show. We fully expected Santana to win, which he did. And what was really weird at the end of this is that as they're going off the air, Hannafin says, "Remember, whoever Santino said last week, whoever walks out will give a rematch to the former champ at Genesis, no matter what." Let me say that again. Whoever walks out will give a rematch to the former champ at Genesis, no matter what. So Santana, Frankie Kazarian wins. Santana's not really the former champ. He is a former champ, but at this point, he's not been a champion since October. That's not what happened. Santino said if Santana lost, that he would go to the back of the line. If Frankie Kazarian won, that he would defend his title at Genesis. That was all that was said. There was no the way Hannafin um, delivered it was if Santino why do I keep saying that? Santana won, that he was gonna wrestle Frankie. If Frankie won, he was gonna wrestle Santana again. That doesn't make any sense. And I guess they kinda set up an angle with Nick Nemeth after the show, and, Brian Alvarez was the one putting out there, "Oh, and no DQ," and, I'm saying, "It's LOL TNA, they did this Nick Nemeth segment after the show, it was meant for the show." Like, I don't feel like it was meant for the show. They rolled credits. I feel like it was created for social media. That's what I got from it. But I think a lot of the criticism was unfair. I think it was manufactured. I think it came from people who wanted to dislike the show, who wanted to hate it, who wanted to criticize it. And I don't know. I'm trying to be a voice of reason. Like when I kicked off this channel once upon a time, I was more positive because the wrestling media landscape around it was very negative. And you might hear that voice from me come back because over the years, as the negativity kind of went away, I started becoming the negative voice. And but now, it's like TNA's an asshole, but it's my asshole. So when I'm kind of seeing these people, the Alvarez's of the world, the JD from NY, again, the no DQ, some of these other names that I mentioned, when I see them trashing this show, that actually upsets me and makes me mad and makes me want to stand up for it and point out what is good. So maybe the return of positive BQ is coming, but overall, I just did not think this is anywhere as near as bad as people said it was. Did they deliver? Did they um did they do what was necessary to lock down an audience for the next episode? No. I wouldn't say they did. I don't think they, kicked ass. Could they have done better? Yeah. But as far as this being one of the worst episodes of wrestling ever seen and all that, I didn't get that. I think if your two expectations are too high, you might think that, but that's not what I got from it. So that is it for me. I will not be able to watch Genesis as it airs because I'm going to dinner with my dad and his wife and my mom, my wife, my dad, his wife, and my wife. My bad. We're going to dinner, so I'm going to catch it tomorrow. and then I have the Monday off for the holiday. So I will. The plan is to review Genesis on Monday, and that's all I got for you guys tonight. We'll be back to normal when we are reviewing Genesis. You will see my beautiful face. You will hear my sound drops. And I guess that's it. But for now, I am your boy BQ, and I am out. Peace. I said peace. Turn it off.